Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about episode 8 of season 2 of the MCU multiversal anime known as What If, and this episode was titled What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602, so we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So this episode literally opens right back in 1602, and all we really know of this world so far is that it is ruled by Thor. Thor is considered the king here, and also his sister Hela is here, and also so is Loki. Now it's pretty interesting because Hela has actually been in a few episodes now, so it's really good to see her sort of popping up and into these different episodes, just because I really feel like Hela was very much one of those underutilized characters. Marvel is famous for, just sort of having their villains as one-off. You always connect to the heroes, but you never actually connect to the villains, and Hela was one of those villains that was, had a fantastic cast, and then of course she was very interesting and very intriguing, especially considering she's actually related to Thor. She is one of the Odin children. She's the Odin's daughter, the only daughter technically, and whatnot. And we just, in the real 616 universe, we never really get to see the character fleshed out. But here in What If, she's in a couple of different episodes, so it's really nice to see that. I really liked her in the other episode, What If Hela found the 10 rings, and now we get her again here in this universe. So like I said, in this universe Thor is king and Loki and Hela are here, and all we know is that there seems to be these cracks coming in the universe, almost like it's sort of like an incursion, but not really. So it's not an incursion in the sense of two universes colliding, but it does seem like this universe is dying, and because the cracks in the universe and this sort of deterioration of the universe is actually green, it seems like it has something to do with time, or at the very least the time stone. And as you can see, Peggy Carter is here, and when this crack in the universe happens, it actually ends up pulling Hela through. She gets sucked up through this crack in the universe, and of course Peggy is not able to actually save her, although she tries. And then of course Peggy ends up falling, and then what appears to be Loki's scepter, but this time rather than there being like a blue stone or a yellow stone, it's actually a green stone. So it's almost like in this universe, Loki's scepter has the time gem as opposed to the mind gem. And so we see Peggy Carter falling here, and and we still don't really know what's going on, but this is the same Peggy Carter that we've been following the entire time. We just don't really know that yet because the Watcher hasn't fully explained the episode. All we know is that she has been here for some time. This is not her very first day. I don't know if they give you an exact time period. All we know is that she has been here for at least a few weeks, maybe even a couple months, but she's definitely been here for a few weeks. And so once this crack in the universe ends up taking Hela away, of course Thor ends up getting very frustrated and very antsy, and he basically ends up ordering, basically saying that Agent Carter is actually the problem. I think he's very frustrated that Peggy has not been able to fix this, this dying universe, and that was the whole reason why she was summoned here to begin with. She was ordered here to try and save the universe, but she was not able to. And so once Thor, orders that decree and orders Peggy as sort of the problem, then she has to fight her way out of this area, of his presence. But she is able to. She does escape, and then once she escapes, then the Watcher ends up coming, and then of course the Watcher ends up basically telling us the story as to what's going on here and why is all of these things happening. And so but now I think it's also worth mentioning as well, is that, well, actually we'll get there in a second. So as you can see, the Watcher here, and the Watcher explains that she was pulled back in time specifically from the Scarlet Witch, and Scarlet Witch end up pulling Peggy out of time and into their timeline for the sake of, because the Scarlet Witch knew that she was really good, because they knew that she was like a multiversal Avenger, and somehow they knew that she was able to save a universe before, and that's exactly why she was actually summoned there, which is how we seen in the previous episode, which was, or not the previous episode, but I believe it was in episode 6, I think it was, because, yeah, episode 7, I believe it was 7, all about Kahori and whatnot, or no, was it? Yeah, I think so. I can't even remember now. No, maybe not. But either way, Scarlet Witch pulls her in here. That's why she ends up getting sucked down to this universe in this timeline, is because they called upon her to basically save their universe. And essentially, that's what the plot of this entire episode is. And so we continue, and the Watcher and Peggy has a lot of interaction here in this episode, and he's basically telling her that sometimes you just cannot save the universe. Sometimes universes are just meant to die. Now, I was actually hoping that we were actually going to see a universe die in this season. Not because I want the universe to die, not because I want the characters to lose, but it's just, we are heading towards Secret Wars, and there has to come a point in time when universes just simply don't make it. Now, we've seen hints in that in Multiverse of Madness, but even that seemed more to be, to me at least, seemed more like it was about incursions as opposed to just universes actually dying. And so, I don't know, to me, I feel like we haven't actually seen a universe die yet, and so I was kind of hoping that we would have got to see that in at least one episode, but we haven't seen it up to this point, and we still don't see it in this episode. But either way, the Watcher tells her that sometimes there's just no way out. Sometimes the universe is just meant to die. And of course, Peggy being Peggy, she doesn't take that, she just doesn't believe that, and she just doesn't really want, she can't accept it. She doesn't want to lose. She's very much like Steve Rogers. She has the same morals, the same beliefs, the same, sort of compass guiding her, and she just doesn't believe that, that the universe dying is the answer. She does believe that there's always a way to save it and whatnot. So it's just really cool to see her there. And meanwhile, back with Thor, we see Nick Fury, and he's here with Thor, and he's sort of trying to keep Thor, under wraps, trying to keep him sort of at bay, and being like, it's not really her fault. Plus the Scarlet Witch is sort of, saying these things as well. Like, Scarlet Witch knows that Peggy, because he's sort of blaming Peggy as being the problem, but Nick Fury and Scarlet Witch are just sort of like, well, she might not necessarily be the problem. The whole reason why they summoned her here to begin with was because they had a problem, and so, clearly she can't be the problem if they had those problems before. So, Nick is just sort of here, and he's a very grounded character, especially towards the further towards the end we get. He does seem to be a character that has, he's more realistic, he's more reasonable, he's not just jump to the gun, whereas Thor right now I think is acting more on emotion. So then, of course, Peggy ends up coming and finding Iron Man or Tony Stark, which is really cool because he's here too in 1602. It's just really cool to see all these different heroes, back during this time, and I just thought it was so cool to see them all. But she actually ends up explaining to him what she thinks is going on, and she kind of explains the whole situation, which is good for us as well because we're seeing this story basically from Peggy's perspective, and so she tells us that, and tells Tony that basically the problem is that there's someone here in this time period that's not supposed to be there, someone besides herself. And she also tells Iron Man that she knows about the time gem, and that they could probably use the time gem from Loki's scepter to figure out who the problem or who the anomaly is, but they would need a device that would allow them to actually use the time stone, because back here in 1602, or in this universe, maybe the whole universe is always 1602, I'm not sure, but over here they just don't have the technology and the, to be able to harness that kind of power. Not like they did in our main universe, 616. Here they don't have an Infinity Gauntlet. All they really have is Loki's scepter. And so Iron Man basically tells her, well, how about, basically tells her, well, he's going to try to design something to be able to use and hold this power, but at the same time they're going to have to put together a team that they can use in order to actually to steal the scepter unnoticed. And so Iron Man then tells Peggy that he knows just the right person, and so Peggy, gets ready to go, and then they go on an adventure to recruit the team of thieves that they're going to use and team up with in order to steal the scepter and hopefully be able to save the universe, or at the very least save the day. And so she heads out while he is trying to invent this device. Then we end up coming to a really cool sequence here where we see the team of thieves who are here in 1602, and of course we have Ant-Man. Scott Lang's version of Ant-Man. It's really great to see Paul Rudd return here. Really great to see Scott Lang, because we actually haven't seen much of him in any of the What If series. Really, I mean, he is in there, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of him. We see a lot more of Hank Pym, but it was good to see Hank Pym as well, because we don't get Hank Pym in the main 616 universe. We only get Scott Lang, so it is nice to see Hank Pym as well. And quite frankly, sometimes I almost prefer to see Hank Pym, just because he is technically the original Ant-Man. But I do love what they've done with Ant-Man in the main 616 universe. But it is nice to see Hank as well. So I thought it was very clever that here in 1602 they would use someone like Scott Lang to be a part of this thieves, and this scene sort of has very much of a Robin Hood type vibe. Of course, here we have Captain America, and he's like the leader of this team of thieves and whatnot. And of course, he's working with Ant-Man. He's also working with Bucky as well, Bucky Barnes. And so they end up getting the team together, and they end up basically regrouping back, I would assume, at either Captain America or Ant-Man's lair or whatever it is, which is basically like a giant log house, which is, or a log cabin, which is the way they lived back then, in 1602. But then they end up getting attacked because, remember, Thor ended up putting that decree on Peggy saying that she was an enemy and that she needs to be basically arrested or captured. But what was very clever here is that not only do we have the Ant-Man technology, but we also even have the Hornets, which was from the very first Ant-Man movie when they had the Yellow Jackets. Actually, yeah, I said Hornet, but it's actually Yellow Jackets. And it was really cool to see the Yellow Jackets here. And we just get such a cool fighting sequence here because, like I said, they're in 1602, and so like the Yellow Jackets are using swords. Peggy Carter sometimes uses a sword, but mainly uses her shield, like she always do. We have Ant-Man who shrinks down, and he has a sword riding on top of an ant, which I just thought was so clever and so cool to see in 1602. And then, of course, we end up. I think my favorite part of this episode, or my favorite scene, is right here. We have Bucky Barnes. Look at Bucky. He looks so cool here in 1602. But rather than using a sniper rifle, he's actually using a crossbow. So that was really cool. I really liked seeing that. And I really liked having Bucky in this episode as well. It was just so cool to see Bucky. And it's so cool to see him using a crossbow. And I just thought it was really clever. And so they end up having this huge fighting sequence. And of course, then what we learn as well is that Happy Hogan actually works for Thor in this universe as well. And yes, he is a Happy Hogan who has also become the Hulk. So this is a Hulk Hogan. This is a Happy Hulk Hogan, basically, or Triple H, I guess, Happy Hulk Hogan. So he's here, but they end up using the Destroyer, which I thought was also very clever, considering that Thor was the king here, and he was also here with other Asgardians, such as Loki and Hela. So it really made sense that they would have the Destroyer, and they don't hold back here. The visuals are absolutely beautiful. The animation is really nice, and we get a really cool sequence where we get to see Captain Carter, or Peggy Carter, actually fighting against the Destroyer. And the reason why this is so cool is because we never actually seen the Destroyer fight against Captain America, even in the main 616 universe. So this is kind of like, a fight, the same as what it would sort of be if he did have to fight Captain America, because Peggy Carter has very similar powers to Captain America. So this fighting sequence would actually sort of be sort of a nod towards that. It would actually really be like this if Captain America really fought the Destroyer. So I just thought it was really cool that we actually get to see that. And it was, like I said, visually it was stunning, but it was also really cool to see it. So of course Peggy ends up surrendering, and she ends up getting caught, and they bring her to the barracks, I guess, where before she has to go through her ruling or her courts and whatnot. And of course she gets there. So she ends up so while she's here, I'm sorry, in the prison, the Watcher ends up coming back again and ends up asking her if she wants to quit. Is she willing to let this universe go? Once again, sort of reiterating that sometimes a universe is you just can't save the universe. Sometimes the problem is just too big. But still, yet once again, Miss Carter just doesn't want to let it go. She will not accept no for an answer, and so she tells the Watcher that she just needs a little bit more time and that she wants to stick around and try to wait it out and see if she can actually save the universe. And she ends up escaping by kicking down the door, and she busts out, and lo and behold, she ends up finding another prison who's being held captive, and it ends up being Bruce Banner, and so she ends up basically forcing him to rage. And I think she did it by the guards. She ended up getting the guards to basically shoot at her, which was shooting at Bruce Banner's cell. And then, of course, because of all the violence and the shooting and the guns and all this stuff, Banner ends up losing control, and he actually becomes the Hulk. And I really liked the character design that they chose to go with here with this Hulk, because it is 1602. They actually gave him long hair, they gave him a beard, and it was really funny. This is exactly how I would picture the Hulk if it were 1602. I feel like he would really look like this, so it was really funny to see that, and it was really cool as well. I really liked that sequence where Peggy was actually riding the Hulk's back, because we did get some cool sequences like that, sort of, in like Age of Ultron. There were a couple scenes when the Hulk would help Black Widow, but she still didn't really like ride on his back like Carter is doing here. So I just thought it was really cool to see these two unassuming characters work together like this. And so they end up escaping, and Hulk ends up running across the top of the rooftops and whatnot, trying to escape, which is sort of how she escaped the first time as well. So they're taking a very similar path. And remember, back in 1602, they don't really have any airplanes or any tracking devices, at least not in that sense. I mean, Thor can fly, but you know what I mean. There's no real true surveillance back then like there was, and so they managed to escape, and they end up coming back now to Tony's secret hideout. And of course, this time now, Peggy has Bruce Banner with her, and also now we also know that Iron Man has officially finished creating his device, and whatnot, and so he's ready. He's ready. He has the device created, and he's ready to basically go and try to steal the scepter. And so now the team basically regroups, and they come up with a plan, and then they of course start to execute the plan. And so while they're in the progress of doing their plan, or executing their plan, we end up back over here in Thor's palace. There ends up being another rip in the universe. Of course, these rips are sort of becoming a little bit more frequent and a little more aggressive. But once again, the rip in reality is green, which to me, once again, is alluding to time. And plus, Peggy already said that she knows that the problem is that there's somebody here who's out of time. And they actually use the word forerunner. So, at this point in time, I wasn't really 100% sure what that meant. And I'm still not 100% sure, but I think that by the time we get to the episode, it's explained a little bit. But we'll get there in a few minutes. But, all I know is that she's looking for one person in specifically, but I think that the problem is that there's probably multiple people that are out of time, but maybe one that's, that maybe initially caused these rips, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, once this rip starts to come, Scarlet Witch ends up using her magic to try to close off the hole and basically stop the universe from dying and stop these, aggressive rips in reality, which I do appreciate. I do appreciate that we're seeing this. Like I said, I think that's one thing that the multiverse saga really is lagging right now, is that it's really lagging the actual multiverse itself. Doctor Strange is the only project in terms of the movies where we actually seen a different universe. Now you can argue and say, well, Spider-Man No Way Home had different universes too, but it actually didn't. It was still took place in our universe 616. It just brought characters to our universe from a different universe. And so I feel like a lot of these stories could have been from, like, there's no reason why Moon Knight couldn't be from an alternative reality. There's no reason why, Shang-Chi couldn't have been from a different reality and then eventually get sucked into our reality. I just feel like they're really missing out on the opportunities here. And also, I don't know why they never told independent stories as well. Like, why not just tell like a really good Hulk story, but with no connective thread to anything? Why not tell a really good, Captain America story and even bring Chris Evans back, but say that it's in a different reality and have no connective, thread to 616. So, I really feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities in that sense. But anyways, we're going off topic here. So Scarlet Witch tries to fix the rip in reality with her magic. And so the team ends up arriving now to the palace where Thor is ruling over, and we get just such a cool fighting sequence, and we get so many cameos, so many different characters that we would not expect. And of course, Peggy ends up fighting and whatnot, and then we end up getting a really cool scene here that has Ant-Man riding on top of Bucky Barnes' shoulder, which was really cool. And I just loved seeing Ant-Man, going small back in 1602 because he's using his sword, so it just looks so cool and whatnot. And so while the big battle is going on, while we get all these cool cameos and cool sequences, Peggy ends up finally coming and confronting Thor. Now, they have a really brutal battle back and forth. It seems like neither one of them really holds back, in terms of their fighting. It seems like Peggy goes all out, and it also seems like Thor goes all out, and it's just such a cool battle to see because, this is, once again, Peggy's abilities are very similar to Captain America, so this is what it would look like if Thor and Cap actually fought, like, legitimately. They had a little skirmish in the first Avengers movie, but nothing like what they have here. And so then we end up getting the Happy Hulk Hogan. He ends up becoming the Hulk. And then, of course, now we have the real Hulk here as well, Bruce Banner. Once again, really cool to see these two completely different characters, completely different Hulks actually battle it out. And we've been seeing so much of the Hulk lately, like little tidbits of the Hulk and little tidbits of like the super serum of the Hulk. Or I guess really his serum is like the super soldier serum gone bad, that I really do think that they're trying to get us used to the idea that we're going to get a lot of Hulk stuff in the future. I have no doubts that the Thunderbolts is going to be heavily related to the Hulk. From what I hear with rumors online, even Captain America 4 is going to be very reliant on the Hulk and Hulk characters, so that'll be really cool to see. But anyways, it was really cool to see them here in What If, seeing these two characters battle it out, and I really just had a lot of fun watching that. So then during this battle, once Nick Fury realizes what the plan is, he actually decides to actually help Peggy Carter, because like I said, him and the Scarlet Witch were both the two characters that were the most realistic in the sense of they know what needs to be done. They're very realistic. They realize that Peggy is not evil. They're not bad. So he grabs the scepter and ends up giving it to Peggy. Now, in the meantime, Scarlet Witch is still trying very hard to, sort of stop this from happening, these rips in reality. She's going all out, using all of her magic, but once again, she is helping Peggy. She is saying, hey guys, we need to help Peggy. She knows what she's doing, and so between her and Nick Fury, Peggy ends up getting the scepter, and of course then Peggy gives the scepter to Iron Man, and Iron Man is able to take the time stone out, and he puts it into his device that he has developed, which basically is like an infinity gauntlet, but from 1602. And so Peggy is able to now harness this time stone, which was so cool watching with the animation. The animation for this was absolutely perfect. It was flawless. It looked really, really good. And so she ends up getting the gauntlet, and now she has the power of the time gem, and she is able to now basically not only control time, but also see time, and now she can use this gem to pick out the anomaly, who is the problem and who is the reason for this universe dying, who here is outside of time, who's the forerunner. And of course, she ends up learning that it is Captain America, which I was kind of suspecting, anyways, because of the way that the 616 universe was. We know Captain America has went back in time to bring back the Infinity Stones and all that stuff, so we know that he has sort of been outside of time before, so I was not surprised that he was the forerunner here, but I still wasn't 100% sure because they could have, sort of said anybody was outside of the, that anyone was the forerunner really, but wasn't surprised that it was him. But what I did like was that they end up showing how he came back in time, and they actually brought us back to the Battle of Thanos, and this is of course was the battle that we did see in 616, where Thanos was there fighting Captain America. This would have been around the time when Thanos actually took the Mind Gem from Vision. He would have also been fighting Scarlet Witch, but in this reality, he's fighting Captain America, and when Captain America goes to punch him, as you can see here, he accidentally strikes the time zone, or the time stone, sorry, and he actually ends up getting zapped back into 1602, and so Peggy then uses the power of the Gauntlet and the Time Gem and sends Rogers back, which essentially actually ends up sending what appears to me, it seems like she sent everybody back to their normal time periods, and she ends up saving that reality. And then what I was very surprised with was that at the very end of this episode, the very last scene that we get is that we actually get Doctor Strange, and of course this is Doctor Strange. I think they say this is Superior Strange or Supreme Strange, which is the same Doctor Strange that ended up appearing to Kahori in her episode. And now he's here with Peggy, and she basically, she's basically asking if he's going to take her back to her time period now and back home. And he tells her, boy, basically says, boy, do I have a story for you. Now, we know that somehow this is going to relate to Kahori, but we just don't really know how or why. So we don't really know what the connection is between Strange and Kahori, at least not in this episode. So what I would assume that they will reveal that in the finale. Obviously, the finale is going to have something to do with Strange and Kahori, considering that they've been, teasing at this for so long. So in so many different episodes. So so all in all, and that's basically how the episode ends. And so all in all, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really cool, especially considering that it took place in back in 1602. It was really cool to see that time period with all of our favorite characters, even characters that I was not expecting to see. I was not expecting to see Hela. We got to see Ant-Man. We got to see the Destroyer, which I definitely was not that I was definitely surprised to see. We got to see Happy Hulk Hogan. I was not surprised to see Happy, but I was surprised to see the Hulk version of Happy. So it was really cool that character carried on. And honestly, in the previous season, season 1, by now, when we were this close to the finale, we sort of had a sense of what was going on. We sort of had a bad guy that sort of connected all the different stories in season 1, whereas in season 2, I don't really see any of the connections yet. Obviously, it's going to tie in with Kahori, and it's going to obviously tie in with Peggy, and it's obviously going to tie in with Strange, but I still don't really see the overall arching. I don't see where the connection is for the overall season. It still seemed like most of these episodes were kind of random and sort of standalone, so I'm curious to see how it's going to sort of affect everything, because I thought that maybe Scarlet Witch and I really felt like the Scarlet Witch and these characters in 1602 were going to carry on into the finale, but I'm not so sure about that now. Season 2 is definitely Agent Carter's season. The whole, almost every episode has her as the forefront, so I'm not really sure how they're going to end the season, or if maybe there won't be any connectivity at all, other than Strange and Peggy, and well, now Kahori. But even with Kahori, she only had one episode. She was only in one episode. So even if she is in the finale, she still would only be in, just 2 episodes in total. So I am very curious to see if there's going to be a main villain at the end, and if there's going to be, that same connective tissue that we had in season 1, where there was a group of Avengers assembled. So far, I'm not getting that vibe, but I am very curious to see where the finale goes. But all in all, I absolutely love this episode. Still loving season 2, and I do think season 2 was better than season 1, even though I absolutely love season 1 too, probably more than what most people did. But I'm really loving season 2, and I can't wait to see the finale and see how they end. And also, I can't wait to see where everything leads to. Are we going to see the multiverse being like the tree, like the tree of life now, which ended with Loki season 2? It was in the trailer, so I'd be very surprised if we don't see that. I also said in previous reviews as well that it seemed like the alternate dimensions were turning green while the Watcher was watching them. So I thought that that was very interesting too, which could be foreshadowing Loki and the events that happens at the end of Loki season 2. So I'm very curious to see the finale. But overall, I absolutely love this episode, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So let me know in the comment section below if you've seen this episode, and if you liked it, tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click the subscribe button, and if you want, like, share, comment, and all that good stuff. Even if you're not a subscriber, I love talking in the comment section, and that's pretty well all I got for this one. So until the next video, take care.